The Spirit Shapers have slain the unsavory creature. A missing enemy returned, just as I foresaw. I've read of such skill, but never witnessed it, aside from it myself. Charmed. A colleague quit. Did they appear disgruntled? Binding lost. An enemy binding taken. Back and forth, back and forth. I fear they've received a comeuppance. Quandary. More embarrassing to die to minions or misadventure? They're doing tolerably well. If you were trying to impress me, you've succeeded. Your binding is nearly repaired. Feared. A spirit binding has fallen to ruin. It appears the spirit team hired a mason. Awkward. All part of a sophisticated ruse, I'm sure. Your foe is about to rebuild a binding. Your collaborator died. Tragic. I'm an announcer, not a bricklayer. Be more careful. Your blood almost splashed my cravat. I trust they are properly humiliated. The spirit team acquiesced to their inevitable defeat. A mortal shaper was momentarily inconvenienced. That noise was the collapse of a mortal binding. They're fiddling with your binding. I might have to put my book aside to watch this. A tragic, senseless death. Farewell, Spirit Shaper. A Spirit Shaper appears untouchable. Ahem. Your binding. And the ruin of that tower was great. They appeared invincible, but things aren't always as they seem. While you're unoccupied, perhaps a strategy discussion is in order? Stunned. A well was taken by the Spirit Shapers. I'll not sugarcoat it. That is embarrassing to witness. One of your enemies died. Wild applause. Intriguing. You're doing tolerably well. One Spirit Shaper vanquished the mortal team. Inconceivable! The enemy's well is now yours. A sum of 4 posteriors given the boot. Your opponents appear to have slain the parasite. You were doing quite well, until that last blow to the face. A mortal binding was reduced to powder. Cunning, ruthlessness, and nimble footwork. An unfortunate turn of events. Oh, bother. 3 colleagues murdered. I suppose that is impressive. An epic trilogy of kills by a mortal shaper. Your enemies are embarrassing themselves. Your colleague just ran into a wall. Stop. I might have to put my book aside to watch. You would think they'd tire of such slaughter. I believe a Spirit Shaper just ran off in a huff. Oh my. That was quite well done. Enemy binding down. Mind the noise, please. Oh my, that probably hurt quite a bit. You captured a well. They shed bitter tears. I'll pretend I didn't see that. Enemy killed, huzzah, and whatnot. Let us never speak of this again. Oh my, a pair of colleagues murdered. Did you hear Oh, your binding fell. Positively alluring. They've placed another pile of rocks in your way. Do you suppose its proper classification is ergovore? All mortal shapers down. I expect the next bit shall be dull. Silenced. Someone's leading a charmed life. Banished. Dear me, I believe I saw a spleen fly by. Oh, for goodness sake. Did it get quiet? Oh, you slew their entire team. Bully for you. Asleep. My, that looked like it hurt. They appeared invincible, but things aren't always as they seem. You took a well. How pleasant for you. I did not see that coming. Enemy binding blown into a fine gray mist. We suffer an acute lack of Spirit Shapers. Your colleague appears untouchable. Ah, good. Your colleague returned. I don't believe I've heard that enemy die recently. Disappointing. Still, one must move past these things. Mortal Shapers seized a well. 30 seconds until the little savages come out. They've almost persuaded me to put aside my book. 4 posteriors given the boot by a mortal shaper. Those foilsome pests. Guardian under attack. That would be a problem. Taunted. Your foes acquiesced to their inevitable defeat. An enemy binding nears completion. A troublesome foe. Your foes acquiesced to their inevitable defeat. Gasp! How could it be? Oh look, another binding. The mortal shapers have slain the unsavory creature. Ah, someone died. The first of the match, I believe. A well has fallen to the mortal shapers. Oh dear, your guardian is besieged. All that stands must fall in time. You lost a collaborator, a momentary inconvenience. A mortal binding stands once more. That will be quite enough of that. Mortal slain, huzzah and whatnot. Collaborator slain. A great pity, I'm sure. It's clear this one intends to be trouble. Suppressed. Shall we dub that an epic trilogy of kills? Beware! The enemy flounces about your guardian. The mortal team acquiesced to their inevitable defeat. One enemy vanquished your entire party. Of course, I predicted this. A spirit shaper killed a pair of enemies. I'm sure you already know that your binding fell. Oh, I'll be reading, unless you do something interesting. The mortal shapers took a well. Audacity is a fine virtue, but really now. I continue to not hear that enemy die. Let us never speak of this again. 3 slain by a spirit shaper. Impressive. That will be difficult to explain. You might want to see to your binding. I suppose I can finish this chapter, then. Let us skip to the chapter they get their comeuppance. One of your foes wandered off, easily distracted, I'm sure. Disappointing. Still, one must move past these things. A missing mortal shaper has returned, just as I foresaw. A tidy pair of kills by a mortal shaper. The spirit shapers took a well, doubtless through treachery. Idolus finished off the spirit team. Helpful fellow. The mortal team has hired a bricklayer. Your colleague took out some refuse. Alas, those constructs do hurt rather a lot. A missing spirit shaper has returned, just as I foresaw. How awkward. I expect you shall have to knock that down again. Doubtless my lucky cravat keeps them from getting hit. Idolus finished them off for you. Helpful fellow, isn't he? Someone's leading a charmed life. One of the spirit shapers wandered out of the holy woods. A spirit binding has been rebuilt. Your binding is almost complete. I've read of such skill, but never witnessed it, aside from in myself. I believe a mortal shaper just ran off in a... The blaggarts took your well. I find that one quite vexing. Bitter tears are shed as the spirit shapers take a well. I believe one of your enemies just ran off in a huff. Cunning, ruthlessness, and nimble footwork. Ugh, those unpleasant little creatures besmirch the field. Your colleague wandered off. I'm sure they'll return. The binding also rises. I shall play a small violin for the departed spirit shaper. Dreadfully inconvenient. Let us call that a mortal quintkill. I always adore alliteration. I believe your colleague is trying to impress someone. How provocative. I'll call that a quintkill. I always adore alliteration. Your colleague almost persuaded me to put aside my book. I'm almost certain they did not intend that. This lack of death on their part fatigues me. Now might be a good time for a push. Your defenses will soon be repaired. That was quite exceptional, wasn't it? Aren't you mortiferous? That was quite exceptional, wasn't it? Yes, we call those fixed defenses. You may wish to stand back. You lose. Good day, Shaper. A sum of 4 posteriors given the boot. Your grindstones are being molested. Your collaborator died. Tragic. That didn't work out for you, did it? You've misplaced a well. I suspect treachery. Such a pity. A mortal shaper falls. They took your well, doubtless for nefarious purposes. If that plan had been any worse, they'd have killed themselves. A tidy pair of kills. Pacified. It happens to everyone. Except me, of course. I believe this spirit shaper wants to impress someone. Your foilsome antagonists are diddling about your well. If they were trying to impress me, they've succeeded. They are about to regain a binding. Fascinating. One of the mortal shapers wandered out of the holy woods. 4 murders in too short a time. Disquieting. Minstrels and drunkards, sing your praises. I know how it will end anyway. They're at your well, I fear. A spirit binding was turned into a fine gray mist.